Hello, everybody! Sodor Railway Studios here, and welcome to another film review. Today we're doing another DreamWorks film. Well, technically it's both DreamWorks and Aardman, and that is Flushed Away, released in 2006, which is the year I was born, actually. So this is one of my birth DreamWorks films, along with Over the Hedge, because that also came out in 2006. Um, So basically, this is just going to be a review of Flushed Away and what I liked about it, and explaining why I think this is one of the most underrated both DreamWorks and Aardman films. For me, anyway. Um, because even though it's actually, I like how, first of all, the animation, because even though, of course, Aardman's really famous for doing stop motion animation, but this film was actually, I think it was actually CGI. But it was made to look like it was stop motion. Um, I can't remember the reason why they made it CGI. I think, though I do know that there was a fire at the main Aardman studio, so that could be why. But I think I've also heard that it was because it was a request from DreamWorks or something. But I'm not sure which one of those is true, but I have heard both stories. Um, but for the film itself, I think that it's a really underrated film. Makes me even more proud to be a Brit, honestly. First of all, I really like Roddy as a character, the main character of the film. Because even though I like how even though he lives in this really posh upper class house, but when his owners go on holiday, he realizes that he's actually very lonely because he hasn't got any actual friends. He just uses the toys that are in that house to entertain himself, really. When his owners go. Um, but he of course he doesn't actually realize that until later on in the film. He doesn't realize how lonely he actually is. It's only when he ends up in the sewer and he becomes friends with Rita that he realizes he's actually been really lonely all his life and has never had any actual friends. And also, I like how even though he goes from being a bit from being a little bit a, from being a little bit snobbish at the start, considering I mean that's kind of to be expected because he lives in a really posh house. Um, but I like how he goes from being slightly like that to becoming a bit more humble after he meets Rita and more willing to do daring things, and which of course leads to him saving all of the rats that live in the sewers from the Toad's evil plan. Um, I do think they probably could have embraced the Britishness of him a little bit more, but I am happy with what we got. And Hugh Jackman is damn charismatic in the role. I can't imagine anyone else doing the voice of Roddy. Hugh Jackman is just perfect as him, and his English accent is spot on as well. Like I never would have guessed he was Australian. That's probably the reason why they got him to play Lionel Frost in The Missing Link as well. And I also really like his relationship with Rita as well, because Rita's pretty much the exact opposite of Roddy, considering she doesn't live in a real she lives in a working class kind of environment, whereas Roddy lives in like the upper class world, or he did before he got flushed into the sewer by Sid. Um, and I like how Roddy learns to become more humble after when he meets Rita, and also how I like how Rita goes from not really liking Roddy at first because let's face it, he can be a bit rude in this film without meaning to, but I like how she goes from not being very keen on Roddy at first, but then slowly growing to actually realize, I actually like this guy. And so I like how she goes from that to realizing that Roddy's not even entirely that self-centered, really, even though I mean he was a bit snobbish for the first act of the film, but he did become more humble. And also I like how and I feel like Kate Winslet was the perfect casting choice for her as well, for Rita. Like I love her chemistry with Hugh Jackman. And I really wish we got to hear her voice more animated characters in animated films. I feel like she really needs the work when it comes to animated films. Um, and I thought the Toad was a really good villain as well. Like he's a really good villain. He's probably Aardman's most underrated villain in my opinion. Um, I mean, I mean, don't get me wrong, he's nowhere near as iconic as, say, Feathers McGraw, for example, from The Wrong Trousers, or even Mrs. Tweedy from Chicken Run. But I do think he's a really, really good villain, and I feel like Ian McKellen was perfect casting for him. Like, he does such a good job. Like, I like how he really captures the Toad's really pompous and snooty personality really well, and he captures that personality perfectly. Um, like you would not believe that this was the same actor as Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Like, I imagined, like, I don't know why, but I imagined that scene during the final battle where the Toad Roddy and Rita's blocks Roddy and Rita's way in the final battle. Sometimes I can imagine him going, "You shall not pass," as a Gandalf reference. I'm surprised they didn't do that really. And also his relationship with LeFrog as well is really funny because I like how LeFrog is I guess a little bit of a French stereotype because of the fact that English people are always picking on the French for some reason. Because I actually know they actually did that on in the first Johnny English film as well, because they even made the main antagonist of that film French. So um, but I do feel like the Toad and LeFrog's relationship is really funny. Like I like how LeFrog doesn't even show that much sympathy for Toad after he reminds him of his backstory. But to be fair, it is the Toad's backstory. I think is like both tragic and a little bit ridiculous at the same time. Also, I think Spike and Whitey, who are the Toad's main henchmen, they are just hilarious. Like I can imagine that Bill Nighy and Andy Serkis had a lot of fun voicing them. Um, like I especially love the moment when Spike says Danger is my middle name, and Whitey says I thought it was Leslie. Like that shows how simple-minded Whitey is, and I love him for that. Because I like how even though he's on the side of the bad guys, Whitey's not even that bad of a not even that bad of a guy. You can tell he was genuinely friendly towards Roddy, or Millicent as they thought he was called. Um, but yeah, he and then of course there's the slugs as well. Like not like I have a massive amount of respect for Aardman for making like they did the impossible. They made slugs cute, which is ironic because most people probably find slugs disgusting, but Aardman did the impossible. They made them cute in this film. They are absolutely adorable in this film. Like I think if there's anything that people are going to remember from this film, it's going to be the slugs. Like the slugs are definitely one of the best things about this film. They provide some of the film's best comedy, in my opinion. And I also one of the things that really shocked me about the film as well is the fact that Sid, the filthy rat that breaks into Roddy's house, he's voiced by Shane Ritchie, which is quite ironic casting. Well, not ironic, but strange casting, really, because Shane Ritchie became a celebrity through one of Britain's biggest soap operas, which is EastEnders, and he's really only known for that. So it's quite shocking that he got cast to be in a DreamWorks film or an Aardman film, but DreamWorks as well, because Aardman was, of course, with DreamWorks at that time, before they went to Sony Pictures Animation. So, yeah. And also, I think Harry Gregson Williams, I think, does a really good job with the music score for this film. Like, I can tell he had a lot of fun doing the music for this film, and I'm not surprised that Aardman's had him do the music for most of their films, actually, because yeah, they have. They've had him do the music for most of their feature films actually, because he did both Chicken Run films. He did this film. He did Arthur Christmas, and he did Early Man. Um. So yeah, and yeah, those are the ones that I can remember. I can remember that he did at least. I know he didn't do any of the. He didn't do either of the Wallace and Gromit films or feature films. Um. And he didn't do the Shaun the Sheep film. But yeah, he has done most of their art. He has done most of Aardman's films when he has done the music for most of them. I don't blame them though, because he does a lot of really good music for the films. Also in the Shrek films, because I know he did the music. I know he did the music for that, for those films. Um, so yeah, basically, in conclusion, in my opinion, Flushed Away is a really, really underrated film. I think it deserves a lot more attention. Um, I don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not Wallace and Gromit levels of greatness. And it's not even my favorite Aardman film. My favorite Aardman film is probably Arthur Christmas. Even though it's not stop motion, but it does have the Aardman charm. Um, but I do still really, really like this film. Um, part of me, part of me has a lot bit of nostalgia for this film because it came out the same year I was born. Um, but also Aardman in general, I love anything to do with Aardman, to be honest, because for those who don't know, I'm actually from Bristol, the town that Aardman's from, or the main studio is, or where the main studio is located. So yeah, I'm really glad to be a fellow Bristolian, along with all the people that work at Aardman, like Nick Park and Peter Lord and Dave Sproxton and all those people. So yeah, I really enjoy this film personally. I think I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 actually, 9 out of 10. Um, it's not a perfect film, but I do think it deserves a lot more attention than it's given given. I think. Um, like I know this was the last film that Aardman did with DreamWorks, and I think it was a good thing. I think it was a good one to end on personally. So let me know what you think of this film down in the comments below, and I hope to see you all in the next video.